Good morning. Will you please join me as we light the chalice this morning? The words are in your order of service. We light this beacon of hope, sign our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
We gather into this circle. We gather into this circle of care, to dream, to envision, to embody, and achieve the compassion we dream, the justice we envision, the dignity of each in an ever-growing circle of love and justice. Welcome into this circle. My name is Charlie Tyler. I'm the pastor here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Low Country. It's my privilege to be able to welcome you back here. Those of you who have been longtime members or have recently identified with us, you know why you're here. There are some individuals here that perhaps are visiting with us for the first or second time, and I would love it if you'd be willing to stand where you are and tell us your name and where you're from, so that we might get a chance to get to know you just a little bit better. So I see somebody already standing, even before I ask. If you would, please, go ahead.
My name is Neal, and I was here last week, but I belong to the UU Church in the southwest of Pittsburgh.
Welcome. Good to have you. Are there any other first time? Yes, ma'am, if you would, please.
My name is Amy Dondella. I'm Betsy Nancy's daughter. This is my husband, Joe. And we're from Wheeling, West Virginia, not far from Pittsburgh.
Welcome. Good to have you here. Thank you, Betsy. Are there other first or second time visitors? Okay, good. Thank you all for being here. Those of you who have made your way into this place for the first or second time, you should know that you have found your way into one of those compassionate and mercy-driven congregations that are on the face of the planet. And I'm not bragging. That's the truth. That's why I'm here. So thank you for being here. There's a number of announcements that I want to point to you. I won't read through all of them, but you see the Centering Our Faith conversations. Take a moment to read through that announcement. The Social Justice Committee is also bringing you some information. The path to belonging is what we have begun to call the process by which new members enter into the fellowship here. If you've been attending for a little while and are more curious about who we are, what we're about, and perhaps you've already reached a decision that you would like to become a part of this organization, then please note those dates for the path to belonging. The start is on the 16th of this month, and we'll meet for 3 weeks. And so take note of that. We'd love to have you be a part. You'll see that Dick Hood is speaking on the 9th, Pat Job on the 16th. He and I are going to be sharing some thoughts. And I also see that Joe Jinks is going to be with us on the music on Malthus. That's on the April the 21st. And I understand that's an extraordinary talent. I hope that you will budget time for that. And I think that that's all the announcements. I'm going to invite Ashley up in just a moment. But is there something I'm forgetting? Usually I do. Oh, thank you. The Sharing Our Story is the last one of those, is immediately after the talk back. And so if you'd like to stay for that, just be reminded of that. Thank you, Ken. Ashley, I think you have some things that you would like to share with us that are important.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I promise not to take too long. I'm here today about the pledge drive, and I just want to say a few words. I come from a family of seekers. With ancient roots tangled deep, I come from travelers descended from the Campbells of Scotland, the Chippewa tribe of North America, and the Bedouins of North Africa. And, lest I begin to think too highly of myself, a bunch of horse thieves kicked out of Hungary. Growing up, I sought a community to replace the sense of belonging we had left behind in Canada after relocating to the mostly empty Hilton Head of the early 90s. I remember the heavy yet curious sense of disconnect the first time I walked into Mrs. Edmonds' second grade classroom and realized that these were not my people. So I began to seek, childlike in my determination, like my ancestors before me. But I sought community, my father patiently taking me to church after church, week after week, as I searched for a place that welcomed me as a piece of their puzzle. We went to all sorts of churches, Methodist, Presbyterian, Catholic, I even tried Baptist, and more. Each one seemed to offer a piece of the puzzle, but none of them felt quite right. I sought not to be the misplaced puzzle piece to any one church or youth group, but to fit in, to be the interlocking piece that played a small part in holding the whole thing together. But hovering at the edges, I was unable to invest in the wholehearted belief that Jesus was the Son of God, and that made this impossible. So I gave up outwardly seeking, retreated inside myself, wondering but not voicing the discontent. The science of my ancestry, the genealogy, the DNA, offered me glimpses into the different cultures, beliefs, and practices that my spirit seemed to instinctively seek. But then, almost 5 years ago now, I heard about UUCL. I couldn't tell you how it happened. Now I would like to say maybe the website. But as we came through those doors and listened to the first service, I had, for the first time in my entire life, a sense of being the piece of a spiritual puzzle designed to fit. And that's why I'm so grateful for UUCL. Here I can take all the ancestral parts of me and be one. I can even explore the ancient Slavic roots of religions like Christianity and Buddhism without fear that people will tell me to be quiet. I can honor my ancestral pull of seasonal rituals and the interdependent web of existence. And while I did and continue to do the spiritual work, attending UUCL is what has made my spirituality flourish inside and outside of these walls. The lack of judgment in this space is the real blessing, tucked away amongst the treasures of helping others and respecting the world. And that's why today I'm asking you to participate in the pledge drive, so that the ones who seek, like you maybe one time, me, my daughter today, and our future grandchildren, great-grandchildren, can have the chance that we had, the chance to discover how amazing it feels to find a spiritual home. Your pledge will help keep this community thriving and welcoming to all seekers, no matter where they are in their spiritual journey. It will ensure that our congregation can continue to offer programs and support for those seeking truth and connection. So please consider making a pledge today, in any amount. Let us continue to support and build this community for all who seek, like we once did, a place to belong. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you for the leadership that you bring to our church growth movement in this place. I do appreciate that. Dr. Jones is with us today. He's going to be addressing us. And Neal, if you would please, your opening words.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you, yous of the Low Country, for having me back as your guest. I always feel like I'm coming home when I'm with you. And actually, I must say, you said you tried even a Baptist church. At Southern Baptist, I can only say that took a lot of courage. Our opening words come from someone who many regard as the mother of religious education and Unitarian Universalism, Sophia Lyon-Foss, who had this to say: "Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness, the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into deeper and wider sympathies. Some beliefs are divisive, separating saved from unsaved, friends from enemies. Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth. It matters what we believe." Please join me as you're willing and able and stand for hymn number 108, "My Life Flows On in Endless Song."
or no? This is the time in our service where we share our joys and concerns. By sharing your joys, they are amplified, and in the hopes of sharing your concerns, they are somewhat diminished. So if you care to come forward with a joy or concern, please come up, take a stone from the table, give us your name, and briefly share your joy or concern, and then place your stone in the cairn. No political statements or announcements, please, and please note that this part of the service is not live streamed. I will place 2 stones in the cairns for the joys and concerns you continue to carry in your hearts. Now, if you will please join me in reading the affirmation. It is number 473 in the back of your hymnal. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We will not have a time for all ages this morning. Anne is on nurse duty. So we'll go right to the sharing our abundance, which means if you have brought a food donation for the Sandalwood Food Pantry, you can leave it in the back of the church as you exit the sanctuary. And now we pass the basket for the sustenance of this congregation, take care of this building, and all the work we do in the social justice arena. Thank you all for your generosity.
As we Unitarian Universalists enter this Easter season, we do so with ambivalent feelings. To put it plainly, it's impossible for most, if not all of us, to believe that a dead man came back to life. Resurrection is the language of mythology, not biology. But that's not the only difficult part of the story to swallow. The crucifixion, which preceded the resurrection, is as incredible. Well, actually, crucifixion itself is quite credible. It was the common method of the death penalty in the Roman Empire, especially against social and political agitators. It was deliberately designed to be agonizing and to be publicly agonizing, so as to set an example for other potential agitators. In the same way in our history, that public lynchings in the South were meant to be a warning to African Americans to stay in their place and not challenge the status quo. And if Jesus was anything, he was a social and political agitator. He taught people to worship God, not Caesar, and to put conscience before convenience. Frederick Douglass, tapped the anxiety of every status quo of every age when he observed that, quote, power conceives nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. More than that, Jesus was a religious agitator. He taught his fellow Jews that doing justice was more important than doing ritual. And he had the audacity to call the religious authorities of his age hypocrites and vipers. No, crucifixion is entirely credible, but the theology of crucifixion is entirely incredible. That a God of love would require the death of his own son in order to forgive people their sins. Now, you and I forgive people all the time, and we don't require a pound of flesh. So, what gives with God? Back in 1845, William Ellery Channing, in his famous sermon, Unitarian Christianity, said that such a belief, quote, dishonors the character of God and proclaims a God to be dreaded, and that such a God would be considered the cruelest of parents. A more recent Christian theologian, Episcopal Bishop John Shelby Spong, who, by the way, I had the honor of meeting a few years ago, says that such a God should be arrested for child abuse. We have St. Paul to thank for this dreadful interpretation of Jesus' death. But we may forgive him for being a man of his time and place. For you see, in ancient Judaism, it was common practice to offer a blood sacrifice right there at the altar of the temple in order to cover the sins of the people and win God's forgiveness. This blood theology stained Paul's interpretation of Jesus' death, so that he saw Jesus as the perfect Lamb of God who was sacrificed on our behalf. Now, this interpretation has been perpetuated for the last 2 millennia, so that as a boy in the Baptist church, I sang along with the rest of the congregation. Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Aren't you glad we don't have that in our hymnal? The crucifixion and the resurrection mythologies are alien to us because they come from a time and a culture that are alien to us. Now, this is also the season of Passover, the Jewish celebration of the Exodus, the great escape of the children of Israel from slavery in Egypt. I don't know about you, but whenever I think about the Exodus, it's hard not to visualize the Cecil B. DeMille movie, The Ten Commandments, with Yul Brynner as the head-shaven Pharaoh and Charlton Heston as Moses, who famously said, I'll give you these commandments when you pry them from my cold, dead hands. No, wait a minute. That's a different Charlton Heston quote from his NRA days. Whenever I think of the Exodus, I also think of a Far Side cartoon that has the caption, Moses as a little boy, with a picture of little Moses in the bathtub parting the waters. The mythology of the Exodus, which is dramatized as literal events by Cecil B. DeMille, also dishonors the character of God. The story portrays God and Pharaoh as going head-to-head in an escalating showdown, almost as if they're facing off in the OK Corral. Through his agent Moses, God demands from Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Each time, Pharaoh refuses. And with each refusal, God ups the ante by sending one plague after another. In all, this Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry God smites the men, women, children, and even livestock with 10 plagues. And we're not talking about a few clouds and spring showers. We're talking about raining frogs and lice and locusts. We're talking about everyone developing boils. We're talking about water turning into blood. This God plays hardball, and his final plague is the kicker, the one that finally convinces Pharaoh that he can't outmuscle God. God takes the life of every firstborn in every household, except the homes of the Israelites, because they have insider information. God had instructed them to mark the doorposts of their homes with the blood of a slaughtered lamb. Here we go again with the blood sacrifice. And seeing this sign, God passes over their homes. Hence the name of the Jewish holiday. The Passover and Exodus mythologies are alien to us because they come from a time and a culture that are alien to us. Now, this is also the season of spring, when new life bursts forth from the brilliant colors, from the cold, gray desolation of winter. A myth marks this event as well, and it originated in Germany. Each spring, the Easter hare would visit the home of each good boy and girl the night before, leaving colored eggs, candy, and toys. He or she, I've never been sure of the gender of the Easter bunny, was a kind of springtime Santa Claus. As the years passed, however, the Easter bunny lowered her standards so that every boy and girl was visited, and she decreased her payout so that no toys were delivered, only eggs and candy. Now, since we may have some children watching, I want to assert unambiguously that unlike some other myths, the story of the Easter Bunny is absolutely, literally true. However, I'm not as certain of another myth of springtime, the Germanic pagan myth of Ostera, the goddess of dawn, who was responsible for bringing spring each year. Ostera is the origin of our direction of the sun, east, and the origin of the word Easter. One year, according to the myth, long ago, Ostera arrived late, and therefore spring arrived late, which made for a especially long, harsh winter. When Ostera finally arrived, she found a pitiful little bird lie dying, its wings frozen by the snow. Lovingly, Ostera cradled the little creature in her hands and saved its life and made it her pet. Filled with compassion that she could no longer fly because of her damaged wings, Ostera turned her into a rabbit. And because she was formerly a bird, Ostera's rabbit had the ability to lay eggs. Some say that this story is the origin of the Easter Bunny. The mythology of Ostera may seem alien to us because it comes to us from a time and a culture that are alien to us. Now, if you interpret mythology as literal history, you put yourself in a position of believing the unbelievable and defending the indefensible. This is comical and tragic and unnecessary. When I visited the Creation Museum in Kentucky a few years ago and saw the displays of people riding dinosaurs with saddles, because as Ken Ham, the founder of the museum, purports, the earth is only 6,000 years old, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, if you read myths as metaphors, which is really the only way to read mythology, then they make sense and can be inspiring and enlightening. So, you may ask, what are the myths of the resurrection of Jesus and the Exodus and Ostera about? One word, brothers and sisters, and I hesitate to use this word because it's been so misused: faith. Faith. These stories are about faith. Not faith as it is commonly used, as in believing what you know ain't so, as Mark Twain put it. But faith is the ability to see beyond what is immediately present. The courage to trust in the possibility of new life. The audacity to believe that tomorrow does not have to be a rerun of yesterday. Jesus may have been executed and buried in a tomb, but you can't nail love to a cross and bury it. It won't die. It keeps getting resurrected. Recently, a group of atheists in Spartanburg, South Carolina, were excluded from volunteering at a soup kitchen. I bet you can't believe that there are atheists in Spartanburg, can you? The soup kitchen's executive director said that she would resign from her job before she would let atheists volunteer and, quote, be a disservice to this community, adding that her Christian organization that runs the soup kitchen, quote, stands on the principles of God. Apparently, allowing others to help the less fortunate goes against her Christian principles. So what did the Spartanburg atheists do? They raised money to give care packages to homeless people across the street from the soup kitchen. Hate cannot crucify love. It keeps breaking free. There was a Ku Klux Klan rally in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Hundreds of protesters, many more protesters than Klansmen, turned out, however, to tell the white supremacists that their hatred was not welcome in this progressive college town. At one point during the event, a man with a Nazi tattoo and wearing a shirt emblazoned with a Confederate flag accidentally ended up on the protesters' side of the fence, and a small group began to chase him. He was knocked to the ground and kicked and hit with placard sticks as people began to shout, "Kill the Nazi!" A high school student, 18-year-old, African-American, Isha Thomas, decided to act. Fearing that mob mentality had taken over the crowd, she threw herself on top of the man, one of the men she had come to protest, protecting him from the crowd. After the event, she explained her actions. Quote, "Someone had to step out of the pack and say, 'This isn't right.' I knew what it was like to be hurt. The many times that had happened, I had wished that someone had stood up for me. Violence is violence. Nobody deserves to be hurt, especially for an idea. Bigotry cannot bury love. It keeps rising again. Abolition was not assassinated with Lincoln. Truth was not murdered with Gandhi. Equality was not killed with King. And love was not crucified with Jesus. Death does not end life. Life consumes death. Never, ever give up on life or love. They will amaze you with their resiliency. That's the meaning of resurrection. And when you hear the word Egypt, don't think about a place with pyramids. Think about whatever holds you back or holds you down. And when you hear the word Exodus, don't think about a B-grade movie with B-grade actors. Think about having the courage to break whatever chains are holding you back or holding you down. And when you hear the phrase promised land, don't think of a place of milk and honey. Imagine a place of possibility. Who could have imagined 15 years ago that we would elect an African American president in our lifetime? Who could have imagined 8 years ago that same-sex marriage would be the law of the land in our lifetime? Who could imagine 45 years ago that a courageous ragtag band of religious liberals would form a Unitarian Universalist congregation in Bluffton, South Carolina? These are stories of Exodus from Egypt to the Promised Land, and they keep happening despite the stubborn resistance of Pharaoh. The pharaohs of every time and place try to convince us that might makes right, but that's a lie. History proves again and again that right makes might. One day, we will have common sense gun regulations in this country because right makes might. One day, the United States will join the rest of the civilized world and provide medical care for every man, woman, and child who needs it, so that health care will be based on need, not greed. Right makes might. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Don't allow the hate speech of some politicians and the intolerance of some voters steal your hope for a country to live up to its ideals. It may feel like we're in Egypt right now, but keep your eyes on the Promised Land, because we will get there. I conclude with the work of Ostera, who may be mythical, but who speaks the truth. Shake off your winter drowsiness and eat. The bushes are blinking. They're blinking open the tiniest of green eyes. Daffodils are starting to stretch their petals as they arise from their winter beds. Wake up. Breathe in. Can't you smell it? Even the grass understands resurrection. This is how the earth turns green. Amen.
So we started doing some research on the theme for the month, which Neal mentioned a few times, called resistance. And this song you're about to hear came up first on one of the articles that we read, even before We Shall Overcome and some of the other great resistance songs. This is an African-American spiritual of unknown origin. It's believed to have started in the southern slave states. And in the 50s and 60s, what happened is this song ended up becoming an anthem for peace movements and no nukes and so on and so forth. And so I could picture, most of you know Pat Jobe, and Pat Jobe has talked about some of his adventures protesting before. And I could picture authorities coming up to him saying, "Come on, move along, move along." And Pat Jobe saying, "We shall not be moved," which is the name of the song. I also want you to notice we have a new face up here. So Ray Haley has graciously decided to lend his talents to our 7 principles. We also want to send our best wishes out to Diana. Diana was going to join us on this song, but she's not able to come today, as you heard. So, and Donna as well was going to join us on this song. So it's going to be 5 principles today, but here you go. This is the first time that the men have outnumbered the women in our group. Just so you know.
We shall not be moved. Standing up for justice.
Romans 2 today. I appreciate you all being here and for that encouragement. Neal, I personally want to thank you for that fabulous definition of faith that you gave to us. Claimed that as my own. There were moments in your message that I was just about ready to stand up and say amen. And I have a feeling that there's a handful of people that were like that as well here too. Great message, my friend. Great message. The theme this month is resistance, and in light of that, I'm wearing my Ruth Bader Ginsburg socks as my token of resistance today. And yes, Palm Sunday is a day of resistance in a very real way. And so we'll be hearing more about themes of resistance moving forward. Many of my readings in midweek will be on that theme as well too. But Neal, thank you so much for your insights, your faithfulness, and for your time with us today. So you have some final remarks.
Well, speaking of that word faith, here is Clarence Jordan's definition of faith. He says to us, faith is not belief despite the evident assurance which surrounds us here. Which surrounds us here.
When we extinguish the flame, until we are together again.
Deserve it.